Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this concert of your Toledo Symphony Orchestra. My name is Alain Trudel, and I'm the music director. If you see me here and not in the concert hall, it's because of, you've guessed it, COVID again. I'm retained in Canada, and I will join you as soon as possible. I'm thinking about you, working very hard to make good programs for you. And we have secured a very, very good maestro, fantastic musician, James Fedek, who will, as some of you have heard last year in the great performance by Julian Schwartz of the Dvorak Cello Concerto. He was a conductor for that program. So we invited him again. So thank you very much, James, for doing this. And I hope you will give him a great welcome again in Toledo. Tonight we go into the spirit of a genius, of Beethoven, of course. It's the 250th year of his anniversary, and we want to celebrate this music. Of course, because of COVID, we had a big festival planned, but because of our situation right now and everybody in the world, we have to find new ways of articulating how much we appreciate his music and we love his genius. And I'm sure you do too. So what we thought of this time, I thought like maybe we do something that you will hear the music of Beethoven, and then we will see part of his music. And then we'll have a full orchestra playing one of his major symphonies. So the way this is going to work is that first of all, we will hear a piece that's called Drei Equali, so three equalies, three hymns, if you want, and it's for trombone quartet, original for trombone quartet. I'm just not saying that because I'm a trombone player. It's actually quite an important piece, and it has a relationship with the symphony we play later on. He wrote the 7th symphony and then the 8th symphony, and then he had to go and rest. So he went he went outside in the country to rest. And his publisher had a very nice house, and he went in the countryside, and there was a very near Linz, and there was a church of very big importance there, and they commissioned him to have some music for some hymns for special events. So he decided, yeah, I'm gonna write a little something, and music to be set to text later on, but that was not the plan at the beginning. I'll explain a little bit later. So he wrote these 3 pieces for trombone. There's a question that there might have been 4, but we know there are 3. And you will hear all 3. They're very short. They're about 2 minutes each. And what we decided to do is to use this challenge that we have in this period and to create a new sonic experience. So we have the trombones all around you like this, the 4 trombones. You usually have 3 in the orchestra, but now we have 1 more. Around you, far enough so that there's no spreading of anything between them or between you. And you will hear this music. You will be surrounded by the music of Beethoven to start with. Now, this piece is also very important because it was the music that was played at his funeral. His publisher, that was also the publisher for composers, they're a little bit like their impresario, their agent. So they're usually very close to them. And he asked somebody to write a choral version. He did a choral version on the words of Miserere that was played during the funeral, the number 1 and 3, those 2. And then when they unveiled the tombstone of Beethoven, they also did another one. But what they did is that they alternate trombones, singers. So we have the music and then you will have the words. So that's it has a history. That piece, it's close to the 7th symphony. And it's something, it will be a nice bookend, this and the 7th Symphony. So I hope you will enjoy it. After that, we have a little special thing, but I think Merwin will talk to you about it. And I'll come back after to talk to you about the 7th Symphony. So I'll see you a little later. Thank you.
Thanks, Alain. It will be so great to actually do these talks on the same stage again, hopefully sooner rather than later. We move from one quartet to another. One originally conceived for 4-stringed instrument, but today performed by 15. It's one of 17 string quartets by Beethoven, and holds an unusual place when you consider Beethoven's overall career. Whereas the string quartets are known for how they expanded the scope of the genre from number of movements to number of minutes to the emotional variety within a single work, this quartet it's compact, it's uncompromising, and it's unrelenting. This is the only quartet to which Beethoven actually gave a title, the Serioso, or Serious. It's aptly named. The quartet begins with the musical equivalent of a punch to the face and doesn't let up until the final minute. But that final minute suddenly pivots to some of the most lighthearted and joyful music Beethoven ever wrote. And it's as unexpected as someone handing you a glass of champagne after a UFC fight. Okay, I might not be selling this so well right now, but why are we doing this piece? I've spoken about this concept before, but I think it bears repeating here. People can turn to music in difficult times for a number of reasons. Perhaps for escape, perhaps for familiarity. However, Beethoven gets turned to in times of crisis so often, and I think not really for those reasons. Whereas other composers separate their musical output from their personal dramas or the social climate around them. That's just not Beethoven. We have these stories of Beethoven tearing up the title page to the Eroica Symphony after hearing that Napoleon had declared himself emperor. We have all these little quotes in his notebooks and sketches where he intersperses moments almost like lyrics from his daily life into musical motives in his pieces. And throughout his life, in piece after piece, Beethoven infuses all of himself into his music. His pain, his heartbreak, and his obstacles. In listening to his music, we hear him working through those obstacles and ultimately triumphing over them. It's not musical escape, it's musical catharsis. It's moving and it's cleansing, and it's music that makes it so specially fitted for this time. When Beethoven was writing this quartet, the Serioso, his own life was in even more turmoil than normal. I mean, he had war, the invasion of Vienna by Napoleon, he had romantic conflict, his intense and ultimately unsuccessful love affair with the woman known to us only as his immortal beloved. We have his deafness, which had finally forced him to abandon any appearance as a concert pianist. And he still found the time to spend weeks trying to prevent his younger brother's marriage, and of course, to write all three pieces of this program. The Serioso Quartet has 4 movements, all of them quite short. In the first 30 seconds, you hear clues to what dominates the entire piece. You have a dramatic use of silence, the sudden alternation between all of the instruments playing together in a narrow range of pitches, and then suddenly separating into the highest and lowest parts of their register. These quicksilver mood changes from aggressive to lyrical and back. Like in the Seventh Symphony, the slow movement of this work comes second, and it has a continuous motion to it. It doesn't wallow in emotion, but it's always walking through it. The third movement is the only one of the movements specifically marked with the word Serioso. A typical third movement in Beethoven's quartets can be playful and lighthearted. Not here. The finale, though also quite short, is filled with everything that wasn't in the previous 3 movements. There's an actual slow bit of music to start. There's a dance-like section, though it's still kind of an agitated dance. And then, to end, that moment of joy I talked about earlier, that is both welcome and unexpected. As orchestra players, we don't often get to perform string quartets. This arrangement, by the composer Gustav Mahler, gives us all that opportunity. It's extraordinarily fulfilling to do, but quite difficult. Beethoven was famously unwilling to alter his work to suit what would have been the normal technical demands of the time. The Schuppanzig Quartet loyally premiered most of Beethoven's works, but frequently complained about the difficulty of their parts, which leads to 2 of my favorite Beethoven quotations. One is, "What do I care about your expletive-deleted fiddles when the spirit moves me?" And the other is, "These are not for you. They are for a later age." This music may not have been intended for them, but it is intended for us, it is intended for you, and its time is now. And my time is up. I'll pass the baton back to Alain.
Thank you very much, Merwin, for this very insightful overview of the Opus 95, as reorchestrated by Mahler. So my 2 favorite composers in the same piece. So I hope you will enjoy this piece, everybody. The last piece on our program is, again, by Beethoven. It's the 7th Symphony. Now, this is a symphony that has, especially because of his second movement, is one of the most well-known symphonies of the repertoire. You know, bum, 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 bum. We always talk about Beethoven being able to, I like to give the example that you give him, I don't know, a toothpick and a little bit of duct tape, and you come back half an hour later, there's a cathedral. You don't know where it comes from. He just takes the minimum material and he builds, I mean, it's real craftsmanship, plus inspiration, plus, I would say, desire. And the music comes from within, of course. By that time, you know, he was not deaf in the 9th Symphony. By the 2nd Symphony, when he wrote the Heiligenstadt Testament, it was because he was going deaf. So by the 7th, he was really used to hearing the music internally. So anyway, we'll come back to those little details. Just a bit of a, not an overview yet, but just a little talk about the 7th. Now, the first revolutionized. It starts with the dominant 7th chord. Whoa, it's something very different. It's the first one. The third, it's also revolutionary. It changes the structure. It's much longer, and it's heroic, of course. It's Eroica Symphony. The 5th talks about destiny. So there's a lot. The 6th is the pastoral, but the 7th doesn't have like a name. It doesn't have anything a hook that you could, like we would say nowadays, that you could have with it that would actually make you remember. Oh, the 7th is about this. But actually, if I can bring your attention already, it's something we can listen to in the symphony. You don't even need to listen to it for it. It will come to you. It's very visceral. It's the rhythm. So we say in music, the 3 most important things are the rhythm, and the rhythm. As you hear in popular music, rhythm and blues, jazz, rap, country music, rhythm. That's what gets us going. Our heart, if our heart stops, we stop. So it's basically rhythm is our lives. So in this piece, it's kind of a Richard Wagner said it was the apotheosis of the dance. I don't know about that, but I think it has this pulsation, this human pulsation from the different movements with changes, and each movement has something very special about the pulsation. So let's start. The first movement starts with an introduction. Now, this is nothing revolutionary. Haydn has an introduction in many of his symphonies before Beethoven, and you know this is some. But the big difference is that Beethoven, his introduction is so long that you think after a while, oh, that's the piece, right? And then it goes on the dominant. So the dominant is the 5th degree. So la si do re mi. So it goes la mi. So it stays on the e pam pam pam. Then the winds play a little bit. The strings play, and you will notice by the 7th Symphony, Beethoven is so at ease with the instrument that he treats the winds as real soloists rather than what I say, coloring the strings or just adding to the tutti when everybody plays. So there's something very special about that, which a lot of wind soloists in this piece, and different wind soloists. Like sometimes the second players that have the solo is very different also from other composers. Anyway, so this first. The beginning of that, we say la mi do. You will see from the orchestra it's much better than when I sing, but it's the right pitch at least. Okay, so you hear those chords. So a la Beethoven is very assertive. Then we have scales going up and going up and going up and going, and chords. It almost sounds like the chords sounds almost like the tuning of an orchestra or something like that, because they're very open chord, and usually we play on open strings, open E, and this is something that starts in a way that you do, okay, there's scales that's coming together and it builds on itself. That's what's important. If you stretch this movement long enough, it starts building on itself. So he's not too much in a hurry. It's his 7th Symphony. He's very experienced by now. So it builds on itself. Then it culminates getting to that 5th note, the 5th degree, which is very important because 5 is like tension and 1 is release. Just remember that. You have enough. Okay, so la mi, then the flute play. The oboe, the flute, pop, 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 then the violin, pop, 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 the cello is pop, 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 pom, 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 pom. So that creates suspense, not dramatic, just suspense. Where is he going with this? So you have to imagine you're there, you hear for the first time, and then pom, pom, And then it starts. It has a feeling, not the pastoral to it, but something. Oh, it's very joyful, this movement, and it brings us very discreetly to that moment. And then we start, and then it's a typical sonata form. So you hear something, you hear an amount of music, then you get to a middle part where it develops on that, knits a little bit around it, and then we go back to the end of this movement, which is music you will have heard already, and then that's what we call the re-exposition, and then this first movement is finished. Okay, it's it's an overview, right? It's not an analysis. So, but that finishes tam pam. Then we go from major tagadam to ba ba ba, and it's again just not to be complicated, but it doesn't go pam pam pam. It goes ni na na. So it's an inversion of it. So it already feels like you're uneasy a little bit with that chord. It's not like you finish that and it goes immediately after. So then we have another kind of pulsation. And that's the movement you will recognize. Some of you like it faster, some slower, but remember it's allegretto, so it's not adagio. Adagio is very slow, lento is even slower, but adagietto is a little faster because it has a pulsation. That's why it's not an adagio. It still has a pulsation. So it's like your heart. Even when you're sitting, you still have boom. It doesn't go boom, boom. Right? It goes boom, boom. It still moves around. So remember that in this piece. So it moves around. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of music. It doesn't mean the same thing. I mean, for all of you in the audience and people watching at home, many of you, it won't mean the same thing, even if you're sitting next to each other, maybe with 6 feet distance. Okay, well, probably. I think you should. Okay, so, but if you're in your own home, it's okay. But if you're sitting like this and you're listening to it, maybe the person with you, it brings them inside their own soul, which goes into a very private place. Your private place might be different than somebody else, and it's all valid. It's all good. It's all. That's why that's the genius of Beethoven. It's even more than music. It's just it speaks to our soul. And I know I've said it a lot in the concerts, and I wish I was there to conduct it and share it with you. But really, we have fantastic maestro and fantastic, of course, our orchestra is amazing. So you will hear that. Then we finish the second movement. We get it yet again, another kind of rhythm, another kind of pulsation. So Wagner was not so far when he said the apotheosis of dance. Sorry, my English, because they're very dense movements. But it's a bit of a stretch. I think pulsation, life. It's about life, and it's about living life and having lived life. So I think if you see it in that way, it's a human experience. So third movement. It's a scherzo. Now, scherzo means literally, it means a joke. So that's why it starts. You go like, okay, I get it. Then it starts. Then there's another part, and it comes from there's an old English. It's actually Irish tune in the middle of it. Now, what you have to know, and then you can do a little quiz with your friends or impress the people, is that when that piece was premiered. Actually, it was not the main event on the concert. The main event was Wellington's Victory, which you will not see me conduct many times. It's not my favorite piece. But it was very popular because it had all these weird instruments that an inventor, the same guy who invented the metronome for Beethoven, actually did two. One didn't work so well. That's another story. So he invented those metronomes. And he invented all kinds of instruments, and it was kind of a showcase. And they said, we're going to do this, because it was after Wellington's victory. So everybody was happy there, and where they live, right, in Austria, because they wouldn't be ruled by French anymore. Yeah. So they said, oh, thank you, the English did the job. So they said, we're going to do a concert, and that's not Beethoven who did it. Beethoven was the star. He was the genius, the composer. Now the other, Mazel was his name. Mazel was an inventor. It was very bizarre because he would invent things that would be like a total ripoff, and he would invent things that would work of a genius. So anyway, he said, we're going to do a concert that's going to be a benefit for all the soldiers in the war, and we're going to try all my new inventions, and you do this Wellington piece. And Beethoven wrote it, and then they added all these instruments to it, and they put a Seventh Symphony in the program. And actually, you know, what stays now are those two works, but especially the seventh. That was a very important evening, and people liked it so much that the second movement they had to play it again. And that second movement of the seventh was so popular that sometimes when they played another Beethoven symphony, I know for a fact that the second symphony, when they played it in Paris, conducted by Berlioz, actually, the guy who wrote Symphonie Fantastique, people wanted to have the slow movement of the seventh. So, you know, sometimes we're purist about things. If you go back in that time, they say, oh no, just switch the movement. So it's another time. Sometimes we have a view that's not exactly how things were back then. Yeah? Okay, so the third movement is a joke. So it comes, there's this Irish tune, so Irish, English. That's the take that Beethoven put back in that symphony. So that's your little trivial pursuit question that you can have with your friends. Why is it a theme that comes from that region of the world? Anyway, so, and normally you do this, you do the trio, you come back, you finish. But no, he does it, he comes back, he finishes, he comes back again, and it seems like it's never going to finish. And all of a sudden, bum, 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 finish. And then, bum, ta-ga-dum, last movement. So you will hear that. So if you go like, what's that? That's weird. It's on purpose. It's a joke, you know. And then the last moment starts. And the last moment for me, it equals energy, vital energy. You're vital. It's like it's the vital energy of the human being and of the world. So that's in a nutshell the Seventh Symphony. I hope you will enjoy it, and I cannot wait to join you as soon as we can. And please stay safe and take care of each other. Have a great concert.